My PVE Corvette, the Cucumber, has received this overhaul. I've done the engineering. Let's show me what I come up with. Today's video is sponsored by SecretLab. We all strive for the best possible gaming experience, but the importance of a good quality chair is often underestimated. SecretLab produces some of the most comfortable and high quality gaming chairs you can get. So upgrade your Commander chair today and fly in style and comfort. Follow the link in the video description to their store, type in your height, your weight, and it will tell you which chairs fit you for the best possible seating experience. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Elite Dangerous with Down to Earth Astronomy. So my Cucumber build, the PVE Corvette, has received its overhaul, and I'm going to show you the build now. This was triggered after I did some deep diving into shield mechanics, which meant that I've been moving some modules around. If you've seen some of the previous one, if you've been following this build through the years as it's changed, you will see some things that has been changed back to the way before. I should say that the build now is more focused towards the more high-end combat, more difficult combat. Before I tried to do a very balanced build that would work well both in, let's say, hazard size and conflict zones. But as NPCs are beginning to use more and more engineered weapons, our builds need to evolve and compensate for that. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I want to start out with the hard points. I've for years now been using multi-cannons in my two huge slots. Both of them are overcharged and autoloader. It's just so nice having that autoloader on. There's not a whole lot of useful experimental on the multi-cannons, but autoloader is just so nice that you always have ammo. You never get into that situation where you have the opportunity to shoot someone, but you are reloading. I still keep my 3 beam lasers, 1 large and 2 mediums. In the previous version, they were efficient thermal vent. I've gone back to long range, as you can see here. So I'm now running long range thermal vents, and I'm doing that because the amount of heat that you dissipate from thermal vent is dependent on the amount of heat that you generate from the weapons. So we could go overcharge if you just want to generate a lot more heat, I guess. I have that extra flexibility when it comes to range, because we are using our beam lasers as heat sinks essentially. This is what we're going to use for our heat management from our shield cell banks. So as you will see in a bit, we're not running any heat sinks, so therefore I want that utility of being able to dissipate heat even on a target that's a little further away than you would be able to if you were running efficient. And of course also when you're running efficient, they are less efficient at dissipating heat because they're not generating as much heat. When it comes to the two small hard points, I have multi-cannons again. I've gone with high capacity magazine and emission munition, just because you can pretty much put whatever you want in this slot. I do recommend, however, that you put at least 1 multi-cannon in with high capacity magazine and corrosive shell. Remember that corrosive shell is a status effect, meaning you don't get any benefit from stacking it. So having 1 with corrosive is plenty. Just adds a flat 25% reduction in armor hardness on the enemy ship, which means that all our other weapons will have an easier time penetrating if they have higher armor hardness than what we have in armor piercing. So at least for the beam lasers, which only have armor piercing 50, they will have an easier time doing armor damage to larger ships. When it comes to the utility mounts, it is all shield boosters, as you can see here. I've got away from using a kill wound scanner because I was using it so rarely, because the majority of the combat I was doing would be doing that in conflict zones anyway. So I've gone away from it because, again, I'm trying to tailor this towards the more difficult type of combat. So that's why I've got away from the kill wound scanner and fitted an extra shield booster in. They are all resistance augmented with force block on it. That's one of the results that came out from the deep dive I did into shield mechanics. Is it seems like those resistance experimental is a lot more efficient than when I first thought. So that means we're going to have some very, very good resistances. We're going to look at the stats of the ship here towards the end of the video. Let's move on to the core internals here. Power plant, overcharge 5 with thermal spread. Again, we can make do with the overcharge 5. You can see that we are running a little bit tight on power. We have using a little bit more power than we actually have available. I'll show you how we're going to handle that here in a second when we're done looking at the modules. Thermal spread, of course, because we are going to be generating some heat, so I just want to drop our resting heat a little bit by adding a thermal spread on there. Thrusters, no surprises here. They are 7A with dirty drive drag drives. Frame-speed drive, of course, 6A with increased range mass manager. Life support, D-rated and lightweight. So again, no surprises there either. Power distributor is also pretty standard with charge enhanced and power conduit on a 8A power distributor. For the sensor, I've gone with a 8D sensor with long range this time. Before I was running, I think, A-rated. A-rated lightweight is a little bit lighter, but you lose some range. I think it's only 7 kilometers, so I think this is a nice balance. But actually, the main reason why I moved it down to an 8, to a D-rated, is because it consumes less power, and I needed that to be able to fit this within our power budget. Long range, again, to get that range out so we can see targets, which can be really useful, especially in conflict zones. And then for the armor, you can see here I've gone with reactive surface, and if we go in and look at the modifications, normally I would have gone heavy-duty deep plating, but I've actually gone thermal resistant to try and balance out that hole it has in thermal, and then deep plating. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because as part of my testing, I realized if we come up against anything like lasers with phasing sequence where they bleed through shields, in one of the original builds, I just completely disregarded armor, and that meant as we're beginning to face more and more difficult enemies, and they begin to have engineered weapons, they will do a significant amount of bleed-through damage because our armor is so bad and we didn't have any resistances towards the thermal that would go through. Therefore, I've put in some thermal-resistant deep plating here, so we are going to be buffing up that armor to try and compensate for the bleed-through damage from something like phasing weapons. Of course, if people are using phasing PAs, then you can't really do any resistance because I think it's mostly the absolute damage that bleeds through, but I'm also pretty sure when you use phasing sequence on on lasers, is it beams, is it pulse, I can't remember, on lasers at least, then the bleed through is also thermal damage. Starting from the top, I just want to cover all our class 7 slot at once here. We have a prismatic shield generator, because the idea here is that we want as much resistance as possible. The reason why we do that is because we want those shield cell banks here to be very, very efficient. The idea behind this build is we stack resistances as much as we can. We don't care about our natural regen of the shield because we're being shot at the majority of the time anyway, and we can't regenerate shield when we're being shot at. So we're just going to completely ditch our natural regen, which is why I've gone with prismatic, and then we're just going to stack as much resistance as we can to make our shield cell banks as efficient, because they give a flat amount of hit point increase. So if we have more resistance, those hit points are more efficient. You get more bang for your buck when you fire off a shield cell bank. And that's also why when the modifications here, they are thermal resistant force block to balance out the resistances. I've gone with B-rated shield cell banks because you get an extra charge, meaning that yes, you get more hit point per charge fired off if you have A-rated, but if you're running B-rated, you get an extra charge for a little bit less hit points generated, but overall you're carrying more hit points with you, so that's why I've got B-rated, and these are both engineered with specialized shield cell banks with bus shell. Next up, I have a fighter hangar. You don't have to fit a fighter hangar. I don't normally fly with an NPC crew, but if I did, it would definitely help a lot, give them extra damage. Sometimes it's just nice taking out a fighter to like take down if it's a specific small fast ship that I'm having trouble trying to keep up with. Then you can take out a fighter, or if you have friends coming along in multi-crew, if that's working. Again, you can switch this out for something else if you feel like it. And again, the fighters you're choosing is also I just threw some in there. You can pick whatever you like here. So this slot is a little up in the air. Do with it what you like. In the other class 6 slots, I have a fuel scoop. We don't normally travel that far with these ships, but having the fuel scoop means that you can actually move around with it without too much hassle. And the jump range is not terrible. I think it has a jump range around 27 light years. So it's not too bad. It's not the best, but it's definitely not the worst I've seen. Then for the class 5 slots, we have 3 Guardian shield reinforcement packs and a Guardian FSD booster. In the class 4 slot, I have a hull reinforcement, and again, pretty standard with heavy duty deep plating. Again, it gives some nice resistances, like 15% across the board, and some nice increase in hit points. So again, it helps us mitigate some of the incoming damage from phasing sequence. Then another Guardian shield reinforcement pack here in the class 4 slot. Down to the class 3 slot, we have a 3D hull reinforcement pack, and we have a 1D hull reinforcement pack in the lower slot. Again, not because they give that much extra hit point, but the resistance increase is quite nice, raising our efficient hit point in armor quite significantly. So here we have the stats of the ship that I promised I would just show you. We have around 3,000 raw hit points, but look at our shield resistances. They're all up in the 70 plus, meaning that our efficient hit points is across the board up in around the 10,000 effective hit points, which is a lot. Of course, this means we do have a weakness against something like PAs, where they have like 40% absolute damage that ignores resistance. So if you are fighting NPCs and some of them are shooting a lot of PAs at you, try to focus on that target first, because that is one of the weaknesses in this build. With the relatively low number of hit points and high resistances, you are a little bit more vulnerable to absolute damage. Notice our armor here, 2,700 hit points, which is definitely not bad. Of course, we had some problems with power. And what I've done here is I've set here my power priorities, which you can see out here in the right-hand side. First of all, I turned off one shield cell bank. We only need one at a time. So remember, these are like filling up 20% of our shield every time we fire one off. So it's giving us a very, very decent amount of hit points back. I only have one turned on at the moment, and when I'm fighting, I would only have one active. So I would fire off a shield cell bank. When one is empty, whenever I had a small break, I would go in here and I would just turn that one on, turn the other one on. There's a little bit of charge up time, of course, for it to boot up, but it's a very quick operation to go in and swap over to the other shield cell bank. So you have that ready. Other than that, I've moved my Guardian frameshift drive booster, as well as the, where is it here? The frameshift drive itself and the fuel scoop, so everything we need for super cruise and jumping. Move that into priority group 2, just because, well, we don't need it when we are out fighting. Now, by moving this into group 2, that means when I'm deploying the weapons, the frameshift drive, the fuel scoop, and the Guardian FSD booster all goes offline. That's fine. That just means you can't jump anyway with your weapons deployed. The only thing that means is when you retract your weapons, it just takes like a few seconds for the modules to boot up before you can jump. So keep that in mind if you want to run. Don't wait until the last second. Give yourself time, because it is going to take some time before your FSD is back online. You can either super cruise or high wake out. But again, with these type of shields, they are very overkill for what we're trying to do. So it shouldn't really be needed to run anywhere in a build like this. In case some of you are wondering about my firing groups, I have my beam lasers in group 2, I have a multi-cannon in group 1, and that's the only group I have. I do not have a group for shield cell banks, as you can see, because you can bind that to a hotkey. But I think I will take this build out now and give you a quick tour of it against some NPCs, so I can show you how we're going to manage our heat. Okay, so here we are in a high-intensity conflict zone. I think I'll just see if I can pull some aggro here and then let them take down my shield a little bit. But you can already see here as I'm firing my lasers on this python here. Have a look at my heat. So you can see it now is slowly climbing up. But as soon as I open up with the lasers, it immediately just drops down to, well, nothing basically. So I've been flying around here for a while, just letting people shoot at me so my shields could drop down a little bit. So I can show you how the whole shield cell banks work. So first of all, we need to find ourselves a target that we believe we can comfortably keep in front of you. I have several of these spec op ships. They should be a good candidate. And basically, we're just going to fire off a shield cell bank and then keep our lasers at the target for the duration while it spins up, and keep a good eye on our heat here. So fire off the shield cell bank. Heat begins to build up. Firing the lasers, making sure we have enough weapon power in. And we're nicely managing our heat. I think it got up to like just shy of 70. And there we go. Now the shield cell bank is firing. And we got some of our shield back. And if we feel like we needed to, we could probably do it again. There we go. Again, as you can see, we can very easily, nicely manage our heat just by using the lasers. And this is a lot more easy to do now that we have the long range rather than the efficient beam lasers.